This is Paul Pearson, host of Star Time. And when I'm not being reprimanded by traffic cops, I'm listening to Rainier Avenue Radio World.
Welcome to the coronavirus pandemic. I'll take coronavirus for 100. Fever, chills, shortness of breath, loss of taste or smell. What is stay at home and isolate? Correct. Coronavirus for 200. Inability to stay awake, persistent pain or pressure in chest, trouble breathing. What is seek immediate help? Correct.
Coronavirus for 500.
Crippling and potentially dead infectious disease eliminated the United States with vaccination.
What is the polio vaccine?
Correct.
I'll take coronavirus for 700.
The Daily Double! Should I take the coronavirus vaccine? Wait. Hold up. This is not a game. It's time for serious discussions. We have coronavirus vaccines, but not everyone is comfortable taking them. Here's the facts. Based on what has been proven about vaccines for other diseases, COVID-19 vaccine may help keep you from getting seriously ill, even if you do get the virus. Getting vaccinated also may protect people around, particularly those at greater risk for severe illness from COVID-19. We don't yet have all of the answers. Get informed, talk to your healthcare physician, and make the right decision for you. This is a message supported by the Washington State Department of Health.
Women are not an homogenous group.
We face discrimination differently depending on factors such as ethnicity, age, socioeconomic status, and more.
Rainier Avenue Radio is proud to amplify women's voices.
They are the experts of their own lives, initiating conversations within their community about challenges they face, the solutions they're working on, and the opportunities they see.
Please join us this Sunday from 2 to 5 for Women's Voices on Air. We know our challenges. We are the experts of our lives.
We are master multitaskers, prioritizing our family, friends, and our faith above our own needs.
Our needs and voices are too often overlooked.
Please join us this Sunday from 2 to 5 p.m. for Women's Voices on Air.
We tell our stories in our own way.
This message is brought to you by Public Health, Seattle and King County, the Washington Department of Health, Washington Chapter, AAP, and Within Reach. No matter where your classroom is, whether in person or online, routine vaccinations protect your child from serious diseases like measles, mumps, and chickenpox, and they keep your child safe, healthy, and thriving. Need help finding a provider? Visit parenthelp123.org or call the Help Me Grow Washington hotline at 1-800-322-2588.
Would you like to see when your favorite Rainier Avenue Radio show comes on? Check out our show schedule, updated weekly at rainieravenue.world.
All right, we are back. Seattle Sports Weekly. I'm Mazvita Maraire. We're back for a big segment. A lot going on the show. We've got an interview with the WAC commissioner, Brian Thornton, that we're going to play. And then we've got Lars Hanson coming on and my buddy, Matt Pence from The Athletic. He's going to come on and talk a little bit about what's going on in terms of the Sounders. They won. And yes, of course, we're going to talk about the trade and the deal and all what happened with Russell Wilson and Bobby Wagner. Just what is going on with the Seahawks. And I mean, it's obvious they have gone through some say a rebuild. They're definitely going through a rebuild. They have absolutely they've gutted their team. The last two remaining players from their the Super Bowl are now gone. One was a trade, one was a release, and it's the ongoing thing of thanks, but appreciate you. Nothing personal, but it's a business. So now, now you all see when players and everyone else in terms of this is a business. It never is. Fans, it's tough for fans to kind of see that, get a sense of it because you're emotionally tied to a player, then the team, and you root for the team. that is connected to the player. So then you can always kind of, blame it on the player. But the issue is that the players are playing for the team and themselves. So where is that nexus there? So you have to understand management is right in the middle. They are trying to promote their brand. That is the owner is trying to win, but there's a bottom line cost. There's a certain amount of money. There's a certain amount profit margin that I am looking above all to make. They didn't get to be billionaires for nothing. All right. I mean, an owner, look at us, in our little budget process, right? And now the savings and all that. And you go to people that are millionaires, right? They learn lessons. But when you're a billionaire, there's certain lessons there that there's certain things, bottom lines, that when you reach that bottom line, you're like at no cost, because that's exactly what it's about. That cost, my cost. I'm here to win. But I'm here to make money first. Nobody goes into the into NFL or any ownership and says, "Oh, I'm just here to appease the fans," and I'm here to win, but it has to be at my bottom line. It has to be at the cost. And that's why the NFL owners have, that's why they have all these stipulations in terms of they went to the draft picks, right? No matter where you pick, the draft pick, there's a certain amount of money that's allocated to that. That changed because the 32 owners, they're 28 then, but part of what they want to win, and some are willing to spend more money, some aren't. So they had to regulate themselves a little bit, but it's only themselves. That's it. So my goal, if I am the owner, is, as I said, is to win, but I have to make money. And Jerry Jones is another great example of this, how Jones revolutionized NFL ownership to a certain extent, not with when Paul Tagliabue was a commissioner. What Jones said was, wait a minute, I own the team, but I also want to own the land that the team is on. I'm like, what? Yeah. Because the reason, if you own the land, then you own the parking revenue, you own the concessions, all of that is part of it. So these owners are always looking for the bottom line dollar. Now, if you can win because you're promoting your brand, right? Sure, a percentage of it, if you win, you promote your brand. But at some point, when it comes to Russell Wilson, $29 million this year, that was the cap hit the Seahawks were going to take. So he was going to 2 years. Contract negotiations were coming up. His contract was up in 2 years, which really means you always wait till the year before to have the contract negotiation in sports. You don't wait until the last year, because then it's just too much uncertainty by both the player and the ownership. So, yeah, they wanted to keep Russell, and Russell wanted to stay. Russell wants more control of the team, which makes sense. I'm making all this money. You're saying because I'm making all this money, the majority of the blame is on me. Okay, great. I got that. Can I have the decision-making process? No, it's our team. Wait, what? So you're paying me all this money. Thank you very much. You're putting the blame on me. Okay. But I have no say-so in that. No, Russell. You know what? Let me get back to you. Okay. Will I be able to be paid the highest amount? Well, we're going to have this discussion with you. All right. Yeah, you go that way. I'll go this way. All right. Let me take a look at some teams that are favorable for me. You go see ownership. Pete and John go to Jody Allen pretty much and say, hey, look, we got intel that, Aaron Rodgers is going to make $200 million, 153 of that guaranteed. Now, Russell's going to ask about something in the same ballpark. Could we go for that? Do you have enough money? Yeah, of course he does. Are you willing to? I don't know, says Jody. What will it guarantee me? Will we get more picks? I mean, so we pay Russell What about the other team? Well, that's the issue. It kind of hamstrings everything else. We won't be able to spend as much money. Whoa. Okay. Do you have any other offers? Well, funny you should say that. Because right now, we have all the offers we're going to get that are decent, that we are in a favorable position. Really? Okay. John and Pete say to her, and she says, okay, well, I trust you. Let me know. So there you go. It's kind of how it went. Washington Generals offer the Seahawks for Russell Wilson. Sorry, not enough. Denver Broncos, who were going for Aaron Rodgers, couldn't get Aaron Rodgers. Then they went after Russell Wilson. They had a plan all along, one of the two, because they have a good team. And so there you go. Bam. Seahawks were given an offer they could not refuse. So, Russell, what do you think? I'm out of here. Thank you very much. So both of them are on their way. And then Bobby Wagner, future Hall of Famer, all-around amazing individual, community member, and I get Russell Wilson is too. They both have that. And but he was going to be a $20 million salary cap hit. 10 years of incredible Pro Bowl, All-Pro, the model of an NFL player, NFL individual on and off the court. Both of these were your captains. Well, Bobby, you know what? Thanks, but don't let the door. Oh, here's your hat. Don't let the door hit you on the way out, because we need to go ahead and renegotiate your contract. Okay, how much? Well, we don't know yet. Well, there you go. It's a business, folks. It is a business. Everything is about business in the sporting world. Don't you ever believe it. And all that stuff about rah, okay, rah, to a certain bottom line, you got to win and you got to spend. And which one of those as an owner are you at? So, all right. And so there you go. We'll talk more on the half hour, because it's Matt Pence and along with Lars Hanson, of course. But we're going to talk basketball. Tournaments are in full swing. The WAC, Western Athletic Conference, they've got semifinals. The Sounders go back to the WAC right now. Yeah, tonight they've got quarterfinal games. The Red Hawks will be playing tomorrow, and they will face the winner of Abilene Christian and Stephen F. Austin. Say that again. Stephen F. Austin. They play tonight at 8:30, and then the winner would play Seattle U tomorrow, because it's Red Hawks semifinal. So the WAC is an interesting conference. And I had a chance to speak with the commissioner, Brian Thornton, about the Western. It's a historic conference. And so here's the interview with Brian Thornton, commissioner of the Western Athletic Conference, kind of why he came about, the job, why he took it, and his experience. And truly, I think the right man in the right position. All right, so Seattle Sports Weekly here. I am so honored to have the WAC commissioner joining us, taking time out of his busy schedule, Mr. Brian Thornton, a man who is pretty much qualified for this position, having played basketball, academic All-American, went overseas and played, a family man as well, and he worked in the NCAA office, so basketball liaison. Sir, Brian, thank you so much for taking the time, and welcome to the show.
I appreciate it. It's great to be with you today. Enjoyed getting the opportunity to meet you in Seattle a few weeks ago, and kind of made that instant connection, and happy to be on here and share a little bit about myself and about the WAC and kind of where we're headed.
All right. So what we're going to do is, let's just start with Climate Pledge Arena, because, we're basketball crazed here, and it was the Seattle University game. What were your just impressions of the arena?
Awesome. I'm certainly familiar with the old Key Arena and what that kind of was, but it was just awesome to see what it's been reimagined as. It's probably one of the best basketball facilities in the country at this point. And, I know some of the Seattle fans are probably disappointed there's not an NBA tenant in there at this point, but certainly beautiful arena, state of the art. I think somebody said maybe it's a over $1 billion to kind of rebuild that place. And it felt like it for sure. All the bells and whistles that you can imagine and desire. And Seattle University is certainly lucky to be a tenant there and have an opportunity to play in a building like that. I'm sure the student athletes enjoy that opportunity.
Yeah, it's a really great relationship in terms of SU and the Climate Pledge Arena kind of administrators and whatnot. The Storm do play there, so that is good. But like you said, a lot of fingers crossed, and not if, but when do we get an NBA team back? But so busy time for you right now in terms of the WAC, and we'll kind of go all over. But tournament coming up, what's happening in the WAC in terms of basketball is ending, correct? Ending regular season, conference, and then your other sports are starting up.
Absolutely. It's certainly a busy time right now. As you stated, this is the final week of regular season basketball for both men and women as we prepare for WAC Vegas and Las Vegas next week. So certainly an exciting time, both on the men's and women's side. On the women's side, it's the race is not that close for first place. Stephen F. Austin has done a yeoman's job this year of taking care of business. They're undefeated in conference play, so one of very few teams in the country that have been able to have that type of conference season. So they're, I'm sure, primed and ready for the tournament, and hopefully, if they happen to be our AQ, that they're able to get a great seed in the NCAA tournament based on their resume and the body of work that they've had. But I'm sure it won't come easy. There'll be other teams that are prepared for that challenge and be ready to take on that institution. On the men's side, it's exciting. There's been so much parity in our league this year. Obviously, New Mexico State has been probably the forebear for the conference in the last several years and have had a really good year this year. But beyond them, Seattle has had a fantastic year, and Grand Canyon and Stephen F. Austin, and you can go down the list. The reality of it is this year, while New Mexico State is probably the favorite going into it, you could certainly see that there's probably 6 or 7 teams that if they play right for a couple days in a row, they could end up winning the tournament. So that's an exciting time if you're a basketball fan, and I certainly am a basketball fan. So I'm excited to see what the tournament has in store.
Yeah, okay, we'll deviate to the right a little bit and talk about your basketball. And you played at Xavier, and then you played overseas. And how did that, when that finished, what was that decision to go into the NCAA, and given, you got a master's degree? How did that all come about?
Yeah, as a student athlete, I was probably one of those kind of weird kids who loved basketball, obviously, but I was the guy who was watching the NBA draft, and certainly would have loved to be drafted in the NBA. But as a kid, I was also looking at who's going to be picked where. Kind of had that mindset from a business standpoint early on, almost kind of thinking that for a while maybe I wanted to go into the NBA front office, and maybe be a GM one day was something that was on my mind as a teenager. But having the opportunity to play in college and be a student athlete, and the social capital, I always talk about that as something that student athletes are able to garner while they're on campus. The relationships that they can build while they're student athletes are things that you can keep with you the rest of your entire life. And after I finished at Xavier, I was fortunate enough to have the opportunity to go overseas. I had some injuries that precluded me from playing stateside once I completed college. But I was given the opportunity to play professionally and kind of check that box or sow those oats, so to speak. And it was a fantastic opportunity to live in a different culture, to learn about a different way of life, and you learn a lot about yourself. You really grow up. When you're a student athlete, especially a basketball player in the United States at the Division I level, so much is kind of given to you. And going overseas and being a professional while you're getting paid, it's a different lifestyle. You're responsible for getting to practice and showing up on time, and in some cases washing your own practice uniforms and things like that you might not be accustomed to when you're here stateside. So that was a great opportunity. I'm glad that I was able to do it. But after I finished up, I went back to school and got my MBA. I was not sure what I wanted to do next, quite honestly. I knew that I had a little bit of a bitter taste in my mouth because basketball did not necessarily end on my terms because of some injuries. And so I went into the business world for a while and got away from sports. But after a period of time, I really started to miss it. And I missed being around it. Basketball and sports in general had given me so much. And I had an opportunity to get into coaching. I spent 10 years as a Division I basketball coach and on staffs. And then eventually it kind of got to the point where I kind of wanted to be a part of the macro of the sport versus the micro of the team, and wanted to have maybe a greater impact than I could on an individual team. And that led me to the NCAA, which in some ways was now going from the micro of one team to, 50,000 feet, where you're looking at, all 350 plus Division I basketball programs and whatnot, which for me was actually a little bit too detached. And there wasn't that personal connection to the teams. It was just a little bit too general, abstract for me at that time. Certainly enjoyed my time there, made a lot of great relationships, but having an opportunity to kind of find a middle ground, which I think conference offices are, where you have an ability to have an effect on a group of schools versus one individual, but also I have a rooting interest, especially in non-conference play. I'm pulling like heck for our programs, and then also trying to figure out what ways can maybe we have as a conference staff an impact on how our student athletes' experiences are, and also trying to prepare our institutions for success at the NCAA championship level as well.
Yeah, and just to know, you played in the Bundesliga in Germany. You were there, so fantastic. But in terms of the conferences, a lot of people, we read, fans, and even us so-called, journalists, whatever. But you are in one of the most, conferences are now fluid, right? Teams are moving in, they're moving out, and how do you, as a team, kind of sit down and talk about that with the student athletes' interest, with their benefit? I mean, let's just talk about conference teams moving in and out of the conference.
Yeah, that's a great question. And, the last few years, we're in an unprecedented time in college athletics. There's so many changes. Realignment is something that's taking place. The transfer portal has had a huge impact on the landscape of especially of college football and college basketball. And then name, image, and likeness. Those are three huge things that have taken place all in kind of a perfect storm in the last couple of years. And it's precipitated some change at the NCAA level. We know that right now we're engaged in what they call the transformational committee process, where there's going to be some changes made at the national level and in terms of maybe how Division I is defined and how those things look going forward. So in terms of how decisions are made from a conference to conference standpoint, I think it's always important that administrators and kind of the adults in the room, have to keep the student athletes in mind, and that the decisions they're making hopefully are for the betterment of that experience the student athletes have. Because like I said, the experience you have in college is so valuable. It should be the best 4 or 5 years, maybe of your entire life. And so we want to make sure our student athletes have a great opportunity to compete and to win championships.
And was this bound to happen in terms of where we're at, the evolution of college athletics? Models, you got to evolve, right, from what the NCAA was and the relationship with student athletes. And, even a few years ago, Mark Emmett, how they changed the amount of money athletes could get, or their stipend. Was this just something that has to happen to create a new frontier, if you will, that is better for sports and the student athlete?
Yeah, I think that it's a balancing act. I certainly grew up in a time where, transferring was not something that was in vogue as much. I actually transferred. I started at Vanderbilt and then transferred to Xavier, and you knew that you had to sit out a year, and that was just part of the process. But I think that just the world has changed. And, I think that college athletics has to adapt. I also think that student athletes, their voices have increased. There's more platforms for people to kind of speak out on their feelings, whether that be social media or other ways where, student athletes are being respected at probably a higher level than they ever have been before. So I think from that standpoint, it's forced change, and change is good, generally speaking. Now, I think that we probably have to figure out a way to kind of level some things out and get to a place that is sustainable long term, because I think that when you look at some of the name, image, and likeness stuff and whatnot, you can start to see that it creates more of a chasm. There's some haves and have-nots, especially, in college football and even in college basketball, where some programs and some institutions are able to do some things that others aren't. And that doesn't necessarily create an even playing field. And so I think that that's something that in this next cycle that the NCAA and others are going to have to figure out what's the best way forward.
On that, how often do you all meet as your conference commissioner? When do you all meet in the NCAA, all the commissioners? Like, I know there's annual meetings, I think, at like the NCAA, the basketball, or what's that schedule like as a macro meeting the NCAA commissioners? Does that happen?
Yeah, it does happen. We have a group called the CCA, and that's all the commissioners in the country. And, we meet fairly often at this point. We do have an annual meeting that happens twice a year, but then beyond that, we have Zoom calls. You can never let a good tragedy go to waste, so to speak. And, the one good thing that's come out of COVID, I guess you could say, is the ability to connect with people remotely through Zoom and Teams and other mediums of communication. So we're able to kind of get together more often than twice a year virtually. And then there's another group called the CCA 22, which is kind of a subgroup of that bigger group that's all the 22 conferences that do not include FBS football at this point. Right. And so that group looks at things maybe from a little bit different lens than kind of that Power 5, Group of 5 lens does. Either they have FCS football or they don't have football at all. So that group also meets, and we do some things with that group as well, and try to figure out the best ways to contribute to the larger CCA group.
And so, all right, here it is. Your vision for the WAC coming forward, because if I look, we talked about those teams coming in and out, but what was when you came on board and they said, here you go, you are now the commissioner of the WAC. Why did you take this position, and what's your vision?
It's an opportunity, and the WAC name has always been synonymous with success. It's a name that resonates nationally still, despite the fact that the membership has shifted over the last several years, and there's been several iterations of the WAC. But, I think what you're finding is that over the last few years, the WAC has started to kind of reestablish itself and gain a little bit more foothold. Our membership seems to be solidifying in some ways, and that's a good thing. I think that there's certainly a place for our league to be certainly amongst one of the strongest mid-major conferences west of the Mississippi, but I wouldn't limit it to that. I think that we can be one of the stronger mid-major conferences in the country if we can continue to build it and strengthen it. And I think that you're seeing that just when you look at what our league has done from a basketball standpoint, depending on what metrics you look at, whether it's Ken Palm or net or other things like that, which you can see at least on the men's basketball side, we've become one of the top 14, 13 conferences in the country from a basketball standpoint this year. And I think that just goes to show that we've made some good decisions on some of the programs we brought in. And, kind of a rising tide raises all boats. And hopefully as time goes on, all of our teams continue to strengthen, and we put ourselves in position down the road that from a basketball standpoint, we could have conversations about being a multi-bid league. We certainly added football last year, and it's something that is important to us as well. We're an FCS football conference at this point. We had two of the teams that are in our league right now were a part of the playoff system last year. Sam Houston State won the national championship 2 years ago. So you're looking at a conference that has the ability to be very successful in two of kind of the flagship sports out there. And it does not stop there. Our soccers are extremely successful. Baseball is really good. So we have a lot of sports that have had some success nationally, and we just want to continue to build on that as time goes on.
We are talking with Brian Thornton. He is the commissioner of the WAC, and giving us, we're all over the board, which is fantastic. We get a chance to kind of really see the behind the scenes, his vision, and hear that. One of the things that impressed me, you have 19 teams that you field, 9 of them are men's and 10 are women. And that's got to be that, outside of, just pushing this, all equity and gender thing. How proud are you of that in terms of what you all are doing for the women in your conference and national as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that gender equity is something that's extremely important. You know, we've seen some of these issues at the national level. Obviously, last year was a little bit of a black eye for the NCAA in terms of the way that they handled their conference or the NCAA tournament. And that's something that we're constantly focused on, is making sure that the experience we provide to our student athletes is uniform, whether they're male or female. And, you know, you'll see that in the way that we handle our conference championships. Both our men's and women's conference championships are based in Vegas, and they run at the same time, because we think it's important from a student athlete experience that those are equitable, and that both genders are feeling the same experience, because it is March Madness. And it goes beyond basketball. You know, it's just really important for us to continue to push gender equity and to push the importance of making sure that that everybody has an equal opportunity.
Yeah, given that I hit a little bit of the family bit, but you know, I mean, you're a family man, obviously having a daughter and a son, that's always that equality. Does that not kind of play into the everyday for you?
Oh man, I got a crazy house here, and with my wife and I, and you know, obviously the last few months have been extremely busy as I transitioned into this role, and my wife Kelsey has been an absolute champion, holding things down with our family. We have a 7-year-old daughter who's in gymnastics and basketball and golf and taekwondo and track, so her schedule is full. And then our son is a basketball, golf, taekwondo, soccer guy. So unfortunately or fortunately, my wife has turned into an underpaid Uber driver, making sure that both of our kids make it to all their activities. So certainly grateful for her commitment and dedication. And, you know, we certainly wouldn't be in this position without her kind of being a stronghold and backbone for our family.
No doubt. Well, yeah, absolutely. Thanks for kind of taking us into your household, because I think it's always important for us to understand the human side of, you know, people that I interview, because there's the title and there's the working part of it, but the more human we are in our interactions, the more we can really appreciate people. Just wrapping up here, where do you go for I know family is obviously critical, but where do you go for your downtime? Are you a golfer, a swimmer? What?
A man after my own heart. You hit the nail on the head. I love golf. It's probably my favorite pastime. Unfortunately, the last couple months, I haven't seen a lot of the golf course, but that's okay. It's something that I have an opportunity to compete in. Once I got done playing basketball, I wanted to find something that I could do the rest of my life, something I could do with my wife, something I could do with my kids, but also something that you could never master, but always compete in. And golf is one of the truest games out there. So that's something I love to do. Look forward to the spring and summer, where hopefully I have an opportunity to get back out on the links a little bit.
All right. So it sounds like your schedule, to wrap up, it's busy now. It's always busy, but it's more intense now, and then it slows down a bit. Is that correct in terms of the summer? Or just tell it, what is your schedule like, just overall from the micro level? You know?
Yeah, sure. Right now is certainly a busy time because we have basketball tournaments coming up, and that's probably our flagship event. From a visibility standpoint nationally. A lot of student athletes involved, a lot of teams involved, a lot of moving parts, as you can imagine. And, obviously March Madness is what it is. But beyond that, then we get into spring sports, and spring sports are extremely important. We have baseball, and we have softball and tennis, golf, and others. So that's something that we'll also be paying attention to. And, those student athletes matter as well, and making sure that we put on championships that are representative of the WAC and give those student athletes an opportunity to compete for a conference championship and prepare them for the NCAA championships as well. So that's something that we'll kind of transition to once basketball completes itself. A little bit different, obviously the last couple of years has been marred with, COVID cancellations and whatnot. And hopefully, or fortunately, going forward, once you get to the spring, you're playing outdoor sports. And outdoor sports seem to have a little bit better opportunity to be played because of COVID issues and whatnot. So, knock on wood, we're constantly doing that, I think. Knock on wood, we can go into the spring with not too many issues, and our student athletes get an opportunity to play full seasons and compete and enjoy their college experience.
No doubt. It looks like the country and everybody's done their due diligence. I know here today is the first day of unmasking indoors, so restaurants and whatnot and schools. So it looks like, to your point, yeah, we'll keep knocking on wood as we move forward. Everybody's doing what it takes for the student athletes and people to get to whatever we call normal these days. He is Brian Thornton, the commissioner of the WAC. Thank you so much for taking this time out on Seattle Sports Weekly. And good luck in your busy season, and we'll talk to you again, sir.
Thanks again. I appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, there he is. That was Brian Thornton, commissioner of the Western Athletic Conference. We got to go on break. We got Matt Pence is ready to go. Lars Hanson is ready to go. So we're going to go 2 minutes. Daniel, let's start the 2-minute clock so we can get these gentlemen back on after the break. Seattle Sports Weekly. I'm Mazvita Maraire.
This is Paul Pearson, host of Star Time. And when I'm not translating the lyrics of Boogie Oogie Oogie for bored Europeans, I'm listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
And welcome to our live studio audience for another exciting edition of Did You Know? And here we go with round one. Did you know?
COVID vaccine is free and easy to get. You don't need insurance or an appointment to get your vaccine. Vaccines are available at many locations near you.
And now we're going to double the value. Did you know?
The COVID-19 vaccine is always free of cost. You can visit pharmacies, community health centers, and other health providers in your neighborhood.
And now for the lightning round. Did you know?
The Delta variant of COVID is a mutation that has health experts worried because it's twice as contagious.
Then for our finale. Did you know?
The best way to protect yourself from the COVID Delta variant is to get fully vaccinated. Get your vaccine today.
Find out more at kingcounty.gov/vaccine. Did you know?
Hello, listener. What's important to you about what's going on in your community? Are you interested? Are you concerned? In any case, I invite you to tune into my show, Seattle Here and Now, on Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Why? I will be covering a wide range of topics important to you and impacting the community. Each show will have a special guest or guests to share with you information on a variety of subjects that are happening here and now in Seattle. I promise I will work hard to make my show informative, interesting, and entertaining. Be sure to listen to Seattle Here and Now on Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
Yo, what's good? It's D-Money, and you should definitely check out Fresh Juice every Wednesday, 9 to 11 Pacific, right on Rainier Avenue Radio.
With pint-sized Patron, P-Treasy to Don. Y'all be sure to clean your mirrors as we play brand new hip-hop and R&B from locals and worldwide.
Which ID yourself, a.k.a. Malcolm Flex. Make sure you check out Fresh Juice every Wednesday, Pacific Standard Time from 9 to 11 p.m. And to get those exclusive interviews that we be doing.
Sipping a brand new Fresh Juice every single week.
Yeah, every Wednesday, 9 to 11, Rainier Avenue Radio. Yeah.
Atlantic Street Center has been serving the children, youth, and families of the Seattle-King County area since 1910. We partner with families and communities to raise healthy, successful children and youth through services including counseling, early learning, youth development, domestic violence, and education support for school-aged children. Committed to serving the African-American community, Atlantic Street Center provides services and support for all marginalized people. Learn more at AtlanticStreetCenter.org.
Would you like to see when your favorite Rainier Avenue Radio show comes on? Check out our show schedule, updated weekly at RainierAvenueRadio.world.
All right, here we go. We're back, Seattle Sports Weekly, and I'm Mazvita Maraire. Well, here you go. Play ball. Looks like there is an end to the Major League Baseball. MLB, the owners, and the union struck a deal. I wonder if anybody cares, but hey, it's not my call. I'm going to bring on, Lars Hanson. Come right in for a quick second, my brother. What's going on?
You sound like me talking about baseball. Who cares?
Yeah.
Does anyone really care? Does anybody really care about the lockout? No, we don't.
I ain't going to call it. It ain't my call. But, we're going to talk baseball. I think we're done talking baseball. We're just going to talk sports. A little bit of Sounders, but because Matt Pence, national writer Major League writer for The Athletic. Now, he's soccer guy, but he's also a sports guy. You know what I mean?
He really is. I mean,
Yeah.
I remember, I think I told you the story before. I think it was a Husky football game, and I just turned around and I see Matt one row back over my shoulder. And I'm like, what are you doing? Who are you running? There's no soccer story today. You doing the American football?
See, there you go. That's exactly right. That's why when Matt's in the house, it's a big deal. But we just don't want to pigeonhole him into just talking about soccer. But it's what he's good at. It's good. He's good at a lot of things, but he just happens to be right now soccer. I don't know what he's going to do next. He did write some stuff for the Guardian when he was doing some stuff. So, Matt, why don't you come right in? So now he's an international writer. International, right?
What an intro. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, guys.
No doubt. Glad to have you. And you know what we do? We're going to talk Sounders in a minute. We got a 2-minute clip from Brian Smetzer because I think there's a change in terms of how they're playing. We're going to get a little soccer nerdy. But before that, Bobby Wagner's gone. Russell Wilson's gone. Just what's your take as a journalist, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, it seems real bad. Like my colleague, Michael Sean over at The Athletic, I thought he summed it up pretty well in his description of it. I mean, it just kind of seems like Pete Carroll and John Schneider feel like they can just kind of like plow ahead and kind of win without Russell and maybe go back to kind of like a more run-centric, defensive-centric style of play. But unfortunately, it's not like 1997 anymore. So I'm a little bit skeptical how that's actually going to play out. And also, like, they haven't been that type of team for years. Like, to me, maybe Russell won it out, but like the way the NFL works, like you always have guys under contract that you can sort of like look at Aaron Rodgers has seemingly won it out for years and he's still in Green Bay. Like the idea that Russell so won it out that they had to move him. I just think it's mostly hubris on the part of Pete, and we'll kind of see where it goes from there.
Yeah, I have my thought. The other thought is maybe they packaged in a way to Jody that, hey, do you want to pay $200 million? I'm sure they knew some sort that what Aaron Rodgers was going to get, and there's going to be some discussion about this is a big payday. And I think how that narrative was given to, because she had to have some say in it, according to what Pete said. So, I kind of agree. I also think that there was a messaging that went to Jody, to your point, because I'm sure she asked a question. Suddenly, this is the guy we've wanted. What happened? So, a lot that I think.
Yeah, but I mean, and to your point, though, I mean, it's the modern NFL where they are literally printing money. If the high cost of paying him was the thing, like, I don't know. To me, it seems short-sighted, and I think the Seahawks are ultimately going to struggle for a long time because of it.
Really? So you don't believe in the let's run, and we've got enough defense to stop everybody, like you said. Where do they go from here? I know you're not the NFL. I should get Michael on here, but you're going to be bad. How long does Pete and John stay?
Yeah, I mean, it sure seems like they're being given the leeway to kind of like at least sort of like construct the beginning of the rebuild, if nothing else. I mean, well, that's what I think is interesting. It doesn't necessarily seem like they're committed to like tearing it down right now. Like it seems like they still think they might be able to compete with you this year, which that feels very foolhardy to me. And like, do they survive that like 2 very bad years and then commit to a rebuild? Because I mean, it seems like they're going to almost have to start from scratch, whether that's after this year or 3 years from now. But it just seems like they're at the end of something, and the Russell thing definitely confirmed that.
Yeah, I mean, Lars, I don't see Pete or John being here 5 years from now. Any of you all see that?
I definitely don't see Pete here in 5 years. John, maybe 3 years, but I don't see him being a long-term guy either. And so, I don't know. I mean, I think the one interesting thing is the package that they got back. You can get a decent quarterback. I mean, you got Russell in the third. It's not impossible to think you can't find another quarterback in the late round and build up on your defense again. And that's exactly how they started it. 2 first-round picks, Thomas and Okun. And then slowly but surely built up the defense and got Wagner in the later round. I mean, that was the blueprint, and then Russell became the guy, and they never really were the same team after that. So, I mean, it's fair to give them one more shot and see if they can recreate it, but it's hard to think they will.
Matt, to Lars' point, there's that school of thought, right? But did they, because they haven't done anything right since then in terms of the draft, right? I mean, you could Jordan Brooks maybe, right? And Rashard Penny, you could give him a pass if he got injured, it was the right deal. But was it their drafting, or did they just hit lightning in a bottle in terms of the LOB and all the drafts that they did?
Yeah, and I mean, that was what, 10, 12 years ago at this point, maybe even a little bit longer. I mean, that's an eternity in professional sports. And so to bet on them recreating that, basically relying on that evidence rather than all of the evidence that has piled up since, that they have whether lost it or just, I don't know, they have not been very good at evaluating draft talent recently. Like, it feels foolhardy to think that they can go back and kind of entirely recreate what they did in 2010 or whatever. But that's kind of the path that they've chosen. So best of luck to them at this point. It doesn't really seem like there's any other sort of path forward other than that at this point.
Yeah. The train has left the station. So I'm trying to think. We've got basketball. Let's go with the Sounders right quick. This is Brian Smetzer in terms of when the Sounders beat Club Leon 3-0, who they had lost to down in Las Vegas in some tournament. I think what's interesting to hear Matt and Lars as well, he's talking about the transition, about how they're now playing this transition. And I'm just wondering, is this a different Sounder team from previous? So here's what Smetzer had to say, and then I'll let you, Matt, start off, have you dissect it. But Brian Smetzer, after the team's 3-0 win over Club Leon.
Senor Holland has a very good team. They are a very good possession-based team. We appreciate and respect our opponent, for sure. What we tried to do today was, we know they like to play all the time from the goalkeeper. They play from the back. They like to play possession. And our team actually is a good transition team. And if you defend well and you press at the right moments, you create chances in transition. Challenge there is, against a good team like Leon, is if you press and you don't win the ball and they open you up, then they're in control of scoring opportunities. And so I think our players did a good job of recognizing when the right time to press. And then in transition, I thought we were very good tonight. And as far as Alex is concerned, Alex sustained an injury on his foot, and we are going to assess that injury, and I can give you more details. And as far as Nico Ladero is concerned, he has a right adductor injury. It occurred during training. It has nothing to do with his knee. His knee is stable and is good. It's a minor road bump, and I won't rule him out for Saturday, and I definitely won't rule him out for next Thursday. We'll just continue to see how it goes. Those are funny injuries, but it's not anything serious. So it's precautionary again. But he was in the locker room before the game, after the game. He's a good captain.
Yeah, Brian, just can you talk a little bit more about the transition? Is this something you've been working on and now it's come to its fruition? You've mentioned it a couple of times. Just can you go more into?
We've always been a good transition team with Jordan Morris on the field.
Well, that's pretty easy.
Okay, but I'm giving you some easy quotes. I mean, if I give you the whole game plan, I mean, our opponents are going to know because everybody reads Sounder at heart.
That's it.
Oh, okay. All
Just
right.
asking you.
Okay. So the fact of the matter is that Christian scored at the very end, Jordan at the very end. We had good moments where late trailers, Albert, we got down. There was a lot of good transition moments. But transition doesn't mean always you're defending deep and you go on these long, massive runs if Jordan is very good at, or Christian. But it's also if you win the ball higher up the field and you can attack the goal before your opponent is able to recover and organize their defending.
it's the same thing. And I thought we had some good moments there as well. So transition in our sport could come in different areas of the field, you know, at home or away. How high up do we press? How aggressive are we in our pressure? Those are all questions that, you know, that we try and answer. We try and bring a game plan together, but, you know, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Matt, what did you hear? Let me just add this, and that way you can just, you know, really take your time. But if the 14th place team in the Western Conference is your Major League Soccer Seattle Sounders, 0 goals scored, 2 against, 0-2. And then just what are you hearing? What are you seeing?
Yeah, I mean, no one has sort of shown over the last 5 or 6 years how often you can have lulls over the long course of the MLS season. And if you have the quality, it's ultimately going to come through in the end. And they are very clearly prioritizing the Champions League, which I think is smart. I mean, I think their performance against Lyon in the middle of this week, I mean, that was far more indicative over what this team is capable of than the 2 MLS losses. And it happens, man. This is what they're prioritizing. This is what they should prioritize. They have won everything else. This is sort of becoming the first MLS team to win the CONCACAF Champions League has become like the holy grail for MLS teams. And this team is good enough to do it. So I would almost say entirely write off the MLS performances for the time being, particularly given how open the Western Conference is, how much quality this team has. But the way they played against Lyon the other day that's as impressive of a performance as I've seen from a Sounders team to an extent. I mean, I just think it was really good. I think they're playing really, really well. I think they're well constructed. And to your question about whether the transition thing is playing like an altogether different style, I think it's a slight tweak on what they were doing before. But I do think that this is the type of way that they've wanted to play for a long time.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think the Rusnik and getting him, for me, again, it's more of a question, but I kind of see why they got him, right? Because to Brian's, that ability, the transition to read the play, and then really, basically, it's the Lake Show, right? I mean, it's getting the ball out in transition and going down, right? I think now, was Rusnik the difference, or have they matured to this point?
I think it's just like piling quality on top of quality, right?
Okay.
I mean, you add like another legitimate star player, and it adds to your depth so that you can be without Nico Lodero or Rui Diaz and still have guys that are top quality to step in. And then, yeah, once they're all together, I mean, really good players make really good players even better. And I think it's just adding another quality attacking piece, and they're only going to improve as the year goes on. I mean, on paper, I think this is the best Sounders team that I have seen in the entire MLS era, which is saying something, given how successful that they've been. I just think they have adding Rusnak and bringing back a healthy Jordan Morris, and knock on wood that Lodero comes back at some point. And that attack is just loaded, and that defense was really good last year. I mean, I think they can win pretty much whatever they want this year, assuming they stay healthy and continue on this track.
If I have a thought that, can they cause a turnover? Because you're also basketball, because he's talking about kind of absorbing. I think they were 70-30 or 60-40 in terms of losing the possession battle, which he doesn't care. So if an MLS team is just Nashville, right? If they're just going to keep the ball, can this team cause a turnover? Can you press and get the ball when you need to?
Yeah, I mean, that's a question for sure, because they haven't necessarily been like a high pressing team before. And the midfield it's good, but yeah, that's a good question. I mean, they're very good at staying like disciplined organizationally. I think the press is probably something that will take longer to develop and to really sort of figure out. But again, I just think that like, that's kind of a question around the edges of this team. I think that like over the long run, they have everything in place to really figure it out as they go. I just think that whenever you have this roster and you already have this sort of defined playing style, you can add in a press, you're going to figure it out over time. But I think that they will.
All right, fair enough. What's your national Major League Soccer? What's the state of it right now? I mean, what have you seen this season going in?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's in kind of a weird place because I think that, I don't know, it's on the upward trajectory still. It is just in terms of the quality and the money coming in, and you look at the 2026 World Cup, like I do think that like it will continue to grow and get better. To like plug another athletic story, my colleagues Paul Tenorio and Stam Skate School, they did an anonymous GM survey that I think was very honest about just kind of the state of the league. And they said that they would probably rate it, most guys would say it would probably be like a 13th, 14th best league in the world, something like that, like below that top tier, but even below kind of that next tier in general. And I think that that's about right. I do think it will continue to climb, but I think they're in like a weird place where it's gotten good enough that it doesn't really have that like sort of like the zany fun sort of like fun personalities, and you kind of have weird things happening all the time, and you have these American German who American fans can kind of latch on to. They kind of saw them come up, but they've reached the stage where they're like, the league is better, but I think it's less interesting, and I think that like they need to kind of ascend that next tier before it really kind of like takes off, in my opinion. So it feels like a league that's very much in transition, I guess, is kind of the way I would describe it.
So do you need to, and Lars, you could jump in on this as well. Do you need, so if we're saying the quality of play is, is good and it's incrementally increasing in the way that it should, and it's not really catching hold in terms of the living room viewer. So you don't want to get gimmicky, do you?
Oh. No. I just think, I mean, in some ways, I just think they're kind of biding their time. Like They're just sort of like they're making this long climb, and they're at this weird transition stage where I think they will reach a tipping point where it will be like, it will reach a point where it is just objectively good enough that it will start to rope in more and more people. But it's not there yet. And so they're just sort of like spinning their tires to an extent, almost until the 2026 World Cup, where they really hope that it will kind of really take off from there.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I wasn't listening very clearly. Lars, what are you watching any MLS?
I mean, well, I think what intrigues me is because we've seen a lot of American-born players go play in Europe, and that's really where, if you're a player, where you want to play. If we're being honest, would it take kind of like a Clint Dempsey coming back, to reinvigorate and maybe recapture America around that 2026 World Cup? I'm kind of curious if any players would be in consideration for that, or if that would do anything to move the needle in certain, like Matt's saying, really kind of. They have the talent. There's no question about that, but it's just kind of getting the capture, and I feel like capturing America's attention, because it's never really been the sport in America, even though it kind of has been at a lower level, like the youth. I feel like every kid loves to play soccer, but no adult is like, hey, let's go watch, Austin versus Nashville game, like on ESPN. That's never going to be the case because we always have NFL, NBA, and things like that. So I'm just kind of curious, what's going to be that thing that needs to push it up another level in America?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I'm sure that there is some rough plan in place in their dream world, the U.S. makes a deep run, and then and this group of prime players who will then kind of be at that like tail end of prime stage, right, like Christian and Weston and all those guys, like they then try to like. It does seem like it is set up in a certain way that if everything goes well, you could see that kind of being the model. So yeah, I mean, so much of it depends on the national team at this stage though, too. So it's like, I doubt you'll see many of those guys come back before the 2026 World Cup, because they are just so dependent on that team doing as well as they can. And that means them playing at the highest level. And I don't see a world where MLS is considered the highest level before that World Cup. But I think you're onto something that is probably kind of the plan, is part of capitalizing on the 2026 World Cup, which you hear a lot about from MLS people, is probably finding a way to like make those American player stars and find a way to bring them back.
Yeah, that was my question. That was well answered by both of you. Yeah, that was well said. Probably got about 2 minutes. We can shift to basketball. Which tournaments are you all watching?
I mean, I'm going to watch the Pac-12 tournament. I'm just going to say there's going to be one Southern California team lose. I just don't know which one it's going to be, whether it's UCLA or USC, because I could see one of them losing, but they're not both going to lose.
Matt, don't say Ohio.
Well,
Valley.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a weirdo, so I'm watching all the smaller conference ones. My Ohio Bobcats tip off in the Mid-American tonight, so I'll be watching that, and I just love all the championship games. So I've been watching that already this week.
Yeah, and I'm watching the Red Hawks, right? They play tomorrow, but
you think they're gonna do it? Is this the year, Maz? I mean, they seem like they have the talent.
Man, I'm looking at the brackets. I'm looking at my Delta Air Miles. I'm going, come on, this could all go well. I would go. I mean, I thought about the WAC, but if they get a bid, yeah, we'll be doing remote. I'll be doing remote and wherever they play. So
love it.
Yeah, no, it's been a good year for them. The whole Chris Victor story is amazing. You guys know, like, there's nothing like a coach who's well grounded. I mean,
yeah.
So. All right, Matt, I appreciate you coming on. I know your schedule at these times is so, up and down. So thanks for coming on, Matt. Really appreciate you.
Of course, man. You guys have a good one. Take care.
All right, so he's Matt Pence of The Athletic, and he's Lars Hanson of the Dawg Report. Lars, thanks for coming on as well. I don't know what's up with the camera. I got a new camera. 1 week it works, 1 week it doesn't. On Zoom it does. I don't know. I'll figure that out. We'll be back next week, Lars, and we'll kind of get it all figured out. What do you think?
Sounds good, Moss. I believe in you. I believe in you.
Well, believe in the Dogs or the Cougars. Which one do you want to win?
Cougars.
I knew you'd say that. All right, D-Money, thank you so much. Lars Hanson, the Dawg Report. And again, Matt Pence of The Athletic. And then we had Bob Thornton, the commissioner of the WAC. Thank him for coming on and giving us a moment of his time. We out. That's Seattle Sports Weekly. Bye. Thank you for listening.